How do I stop the fire before it consumes me? I have consistently been a composed individual. Even as a child, I was not particularly emotive. I simply acted in ways that seemed logical. My parents were loving, but physical affection and emotional validation were not significant aspects of my upbringing. I was neither neglected nor mistreated. I simply lacked that kind of nurturing. Growing up, I lacked true social skills. I was not shy, but I struggled to forge connections with others. On the surface, I appeared calm, yet deep down, I harbored a rebellious streak, a desire to break rules, test boundaries, and even exhibit violence. I possessed no filter and had a limited understanding of right and wrong, only grasping concepts based on what I could get away with. Over time, I unknowingly recognized that this behavior was unsustainable. By 6th grade, I developed a self-imposed filter, unwittingly training myself to function normally, even though I remained quiet and reserved. By the end of middle school, I had transformed into someone who could blend into my surroundings. Then came high school, where I experienced severe emotional upheaval. This was not just a typical story of a high school outsider, it was far more complicated. False rumors were spread about me, serious allegations relating to sexual harassment and assault, deliberately disseminated as revenge by individuals with whom I had a falling out in 10th grade. Those I trusted began to turn against me gradually. I became a social pariah, an open target for harassment and violence. I was bullied, cornered, and physically attacked. In just 3 months, I was involved in 20 fights, and I came close to being stabbed. I lost my first girlfriend to health issues unrelated to these events, but it added to my burden. For 3 continuous years, I was caught in a cycle of isolation, betrayal, and violence. My naive self was lured out by girls from my school who messaged me to hang out, only to find that 12 individuals were waiting with sticks. No one intervened. The administration did nothing. Although some attempted to defend me, it felt like battling an all-consuming virus. Even my closest friends ultimately stood by and watched. It was a long, drawn-out lesson in how expendable I was to those around me, and how predictable and pitiful people could be. Everyone seemed like a blank slate, capable of producing the same behaviors when placed in similar circumstances. When it finally ended, I was not the same person. I grew to detest people, cried tears of frustration every night, and felt a deep, simmering rage within me, a flame burning beneath my heart for weeks on end. I fantasized about harming the girl who initiated this turmoil. I made plans and started training in Muay Thai and boxing to refine my skills, yet it felt insufficient. I recognize how different my life would be if I lacked those passions. I coped with philosophy, pondering theories to find meaning in my suffering, improved my drawing and painting to an advanced level, developed a quick jab, lifted 225 pounds and expanded my knowledge, but I still could not escape my anger. The rage returned, but everything else, trust, softness, attachment, disappeared, replaced by paranoia, arrogance, anger, and a sense of isolation. My attempts at humor fell flat, social interactions dwindled, and my capacity for empathy diminished. I approach emotions logically, but at this point, my primary feelings consist of anger and self-control. While this keeps me sharp and prevents impulsive emotional decisions, it also hampers my ability to trust others, believe in kindness, and form meaningful connections, and I resent that. This limitation affects my social life, and deep down, I fear my own psyche. I know that the menacing version of myself from childhood is still present, as beneath my protective filter lies the same deep-seated rage, now amplified and sometimes justified. I come dangerously close to losing control. My filter feels like a heavy dining table pressing down on me. Occasionally, I approach the edge, feeling as though I could push that table off, but I always stop and allow it to fall back on me, fearing what might ensue. My ex-girlfriend cheated on me, and although this only solidified my animosity toward people and distrust of women, I spent a month meticulously plotting my revenge on her. I won't delve into the specifics, but I concocted a satisfying scheme. I have the capability to inflict harm on others, and I can be manipulative and cunning. I am genuinely revealing my life story, not glorifying myself in any way. I don't know, but I am frightened by the unrestrained version of myself. Although several years have passed since those times, I'm a changed person, but not for the better. I feel nothing for anyone, not for my parents, not for my siblings, not for my failed math exams, nor for losing my house keys. Threats don't frighten me, and insults don't wound me. Nothing anyone says can disturb me. It does not bother me if I stub my toe, and I do not care if someone consumes my last slice of cheesecake. At first glance, this may seem appealing, but then you realize it affects my relationships as well. I am unable to love or be vulnerable, and I cannot melt into someone's embrace. My relationships are transactional and calculated. Everything I do feels like I am merely participating in a tiresome game of chess instead of genuinely living. I had everything but still found no happiness. I spent my evenings engulfed in a frenzied rage, filled with hatred for those around me. Then, 3 months ago, I went on a date with a high school friend. When I say I had an incredible time, it made me rethink everything. It made me question whether, as Drake said, I had been down so long that it felt like up to me. Have I been closed off from experiencing emotions simply because I never had the opportunity? We ended up getting together. I was hesitant. I still harbored distrust toward women and people in general. I sought out patterns and convinced myself that pursuing this relationship was a poor decision, yet I decided to proceed regardless. Now, she is my girlfriend. I anticipated that my hatred would dissipate, and for a brief moment, it did. However, she began to engage in seemingly innocuous actions that triggered my alarm bells. I struggled to open up to her, accept that she would not harm me, and believe that she genuinely liked me for who I am. I am intelligent enough to recognize that it is not her fault, yet my anger began to manifest toward her not through action, but internally. I contemplated breaking up with her, taking things slower, and considering other options, only to realize that deep down, I do have feelings for her. Being with her felt like waves crashing on the shore, cherry blossoms dancing in the wind, or a serene walk at 3 a.m. I experienced moments of peace, but only occasionally. I continued to mask my emotions and feigned empathy toward her issues, pretending she was my entire world, when in reality, I felt very little for anything, not just her. And what triggered this reflection in the first place? My girlfriend recently called me an emotional teaspoon. She stated that I do not express myself adequately and that she struggles to understand my emotions. I recognize that she is correct. However, this extends beyond her. It is about me. I refuse to live my life in this emotional confinement. I do not want to be so controlled that I am left with nothing to feel. I understand that I can endure this existence I already have, but how can I ensure that I do not implode into hatred in the process? Story 2. X sent me an explicit text about us after being married for 4 years. In my early 20s, I encountered a man named Adam. I met him through someone I connected with on Tinder, but we didn't bond romantically. He invited me to dinner parties that his family hosted on a regular basis. After a few months, we spent time together outside of those parties a few times, and eventually, our relationship became physical. I don't recall how it all began, but there was an unspoken understanding before it occurred, that much is certain. Adam was in his mid-20s, making him the first older partner I had ever dated. Typically, my age differences had been limited to 3 years younger, so I wanted to proceed cautiously. Eventually, I admitted that I was deliberately avoiding romantic thoughts about him. I didn't want to assume a relationship that he might not desire, yet after being casual for 6 months, I figured it was acceptable to bring it up. He allowed me to think about it if I wished and assured me he would wait for my response. I should have recognized granting me that permission as the initial red flag, but I was caught up in the excitement of potentially being official. I contemplated it for a week before our next meeting and concluded that my feelings were intense. I genuinely believed that I could love him, and perhaps I already did. Out of the blue, he distanced himself. I felt perplexed until a friend and roommate informed me that he had reconciled with an ex. This was not a minor issue. He was considering moving out of state to be with her. The night I was advised to contemplate things, she messaged him, and he drove to Las Vegas to meet her and begin making plans. He had never even liked Las Vegas. I was hurt and we argued, yet I decided since we weren't officially together, it wasn't worth burning any bridges. He and I had built a solid friendship, and things were functioning reasonably well. One day, I received a message from his roommate, revealing that he not only broke up with her a month later but had also already moved on, sharing photos online of them together, which implied she cheated on him. I felt sympathy for him. By that point, he had become a good friend, and according to the message, he was deeply affected by it, devastated. I assumed he felt like he was finally finding the love of his life, which is how he had previously described her to me when I confronted him. I reached out to his roommate and a close coworker, and the three of them took him out to a bar to help him cope with his problems. Wanting to uplift his spirits, I ended up getting fairly drunk. That eventually led to a sexual encounter, and although we were back to a casual setup, I wanted it to remain that way until he felt ready. Then he started seeing another woman. They were discussing getting chickens and moving in together. Once again, I was on the sidelines. After that, I chose to keep my distance and maintain just dinner party interactions until they broke up. Around that time, I introduced my friend Abigail to the parties, and suddenly he realized he wanted to marry her. They went through with it and now have a daughter and another child on the way. Abigail, however, is struggling with a difficult second pregnancy, being bedridden most days. Since he is now married to Abigail, we maintained contact, and I took it upon myself to be an early sounding board for him to express the challenges of single parenting while she was unwell. Eventually, he inquired about how my partner and I were doing. I suggested that we hadn't been particularly close sexually lately. To clarify how little I meant in this context, I said exactly. Yes, he overtrained for his game recently and hasn't had the energy to do much. But the distance is primarily physical. He loves me immensely, though, just so you know. Nothing explicit, and certainly not solely focused on the physical side. I was merely trying to avoid sounding dismissive about his struggles. In response, he remarked that physical intimacy was not the only way to connect, prompting my internal reaction of course, I am aware that is what I said. He then sent a detailed message about a sexual experience we had together, stating he hadn't felt so desired since. I kind of panicked and immediately informed his wife and my partner. Surprisingly, his wife remained calm about it, mentioning that they had discussed the matter. I have no idea what was said, but everyone besides me seems to feel that the situation has been resolved. I am furious. I am angry that he would bring it up, that he described it, and that had I not matured and recognized how terrible his actions were, which I had been trying to forgive when he apologized earlier in the conversation, it would have worked out. That would not have respected my feelings or myself in the slightest. I would have degraded myself in an attempt to reconnect, wasting my time again, knowing he has behaved this way repeatedly in the past, and that I had been so easily influenced by him. There was a period when I wanted him to be aware of how much I yearned for him, and instead of allowing that memory to fade, he resurrected it. Every moment I have spent with my fiancé since receiving that text has made me incredibly grateful for him. Even if we are not as close right now, I have never found it difficult to love him. I never felt as if I had to earn his love. It is simply something he wishes to give me. I treasure him. I often joke that he is my stars and moon. Beneath that playful banter, it is true. He has made feeling loved easy for me for the first time in my life. I cannot imagine telling anyone else that they make me feel more desired than someone I want to share my life with. Part of me thinks it is strange to consider that an emotional affair because everyone, except my partner, who was incredibly grateful I told him, he even assured me he is on my side throughout this, seems to think my reaction was somewhat unjustified. The thought of a weaker version of myself succumbing to that temptation haunts me, and I feel betrayed as a friend that this situation is being downplayed. I needed to express this turmoil into the void. These repulsive feelings have no right to occupy my mind or have a place in my relationship. Thank you for taking the time to read this. It helps to feel as though these emotions are achieving something rather than merely tainting everything they touch. Edit to update. Thank you all for your feedback. I don't intend to keep Adam in my life. I recognize that I have been ignoring the signs of him using me. This is the primary purpose of my post, but I appreciate your concern. My partner, the most incredible person, was also friends with Adam. He was never out of the loop regarding Adam's behavior. He understood I had a limited social circle and was confident that Adam had changed since he wouldn't let me hang out with him alone for several months, which made me comfortable that it wouldn't happen again. These are discussions we would have together. Not in detail, but I would never discuss anything concerning my partner and me without it being something that we wouldn't want the other to share or something we wouldn't raise together. So none of you should worry about my partner in this situation. We are together, happy, and open about everything. Secrets are not a concern for us. We are very aware of each other's feelings, and I am not blind to the signs I have been overlooking. I have been giving friends the benefit of the doubt, only to realize this year that they aren't always as supportive as I thought. I appreciate the advice, but please know that I haven't sought it intentionally to stay compliant with the guidelines. This is me processing the betrayal from someone who was given too many chances. I am taking steps to find happiness in my life, and I feel disappointed that the friendship we had must be part of the resolution due to this. I am let down by his actions once more, since I shouldn't have needed to return to support him. Story 3. Neighbors' landscaping store hogged parking, so we blocked access with rocks. They got fined for overstaying in our lot. Priceless. I hope this message finds you well. I apologize for any errors since English is not my primary language. Some details have been modified to ensure anonymity. I am employed at a specialized retail shop situated in the center of the town. Our clientele is loyal and often travels from a distance just to patronize us, making it essential to maintain a clear and accessible parking area for our operations. Regrettably, our neighboring business, a family-operated landscaping and garden supply store, has posed a continual challenge regarding parking for many years. The discord between my employer and the landscaping store owner dates back more than a decade prior to my joining, all stemming from a minor issue. I am aware that the landscaper previously expressed concern about a tree on our side of the lot, which he felt was unattractive for his customers. It was the most trivial neighborly dispute imaginable, yet it persisted for years. The breaking point occurred after the pandemic, when local businesses began to thrive again, and our parking area became congested with vehicles, many of which were from the landscaping store's customers. It is important to note that our two parking lots are interconnected. Our lot is approximately twice the size of theirs, but the landscaper had chosen to reserve nearly all his spaces for his landscaping vehicles. Ironically, those vehicles are seldom present during business hours. Consequently, his customers ended up parking in our lot, leaving us with very few spaces for our own customers. In an attempt to be reasonable, my boss reached out to the landscaper with a proposal. He suggested they modify their parking arrangement to create additional space for customers, and mentioned that their vans could use our lot if theirs happened to be full. However, the landscaper immediately rejected this idea, asserting that it was absolutely vital to keep all those spaces reserved for his vans, even though they were seldom there during the daytime. The discussion escalated, culminating in my boss threatening to erect a fence to separate the lots and enforce parking regulations. The landscaper, seemingly challenging him, retorted, "Go ahead," likely aware of the financial burden that would entail. As one might expect, the confrontation ended with both individuals storming off, resulting in 2 years of silence between them. Classic neighborly behavior. Fast forward to recent events, and we encountered a fantastic opportunity when a parking management firm approached us with an offer. They proposed installing automated license plate recognition cameras to enforce parking regulations, allowing us to issue fines to vehicles that overstayed a generous 3-hour free parking period, provided they had not made a payment. The installation would be at no cost to us, and we would retain the majority of the revenue, while the company would keep any fines issued. This arrangement was ideal, particularly since we had been losing spaces to those taking advantage, and it would have minimal impact on the customers of nearby businesses. Moreover, if anyone had a legitimate reason for parking longer, we could grant an extension at our discretion. However, for the cameras to function effectively, they needed to cover both our entrance and that of the landscaping store. Taking into account neighborly consideration, once again, my boss had the representative from the parking company contact the landscaper to explain the arrangement and its benefits. True to form, the landscaper did not allow the representative to finish his explanation before dismissing him, making it abundantly clear that under no circumstances would his lot become a paid parking zone. Rather than endure the hassle and expense of installing a necessary fence, my boss devised a better solution: large boulders. One of his construction colleagues had a supply of leftover rocks from a recent job, and offered to place them for a reasonable price. The parking company even agreed to cover the initial cost, with reimbursement expected through future parking revenues. On Monday morning, before we opened for business, one of the construction workers' employees, a robust individual with arms resembling tree trunks, arrived with a truck and crane to position the rocks. These boulders were spaced out adequately to allow pedestrians to pass with carts while entirely obstructing vehicular access. The landscaper emerged furiously, yelling and attempting to intimidate the worker into halting the work. However, the worker remained unfazed and calmly instructed him to step back for his safety, which caused the significantly smaller landscaper to back down in irritation. The rocks were not merely physical barriers, they soon became psychological hindrances for the landscaping employees. Their habitual pattern caused them to drive into our lot, only to discover too late that they could no longer pass through. We monitored the situation through our newly installed surveillance cameras, doing our best not to laugh as their vans found themselves awkwardly stuck. They were forced to reverse and navigate all the way back around to their entrance, only to struggle to re-enter their now considerably smaller parking area. At one point, we even observed one of their hurried vans clipping a rock while attempting to maneuver, which provided us with a bit of entertainment. The following day, the parking company arrived to install the license plate cameras and set up the necessary signage, a process that took several hours. Throughout the installation, the landscaper's family members prowled around our lot, taking photos and videos as if they were on a mission to unearth a violation. However, the parking company was entirely professional and followed all procedures correctly, leaving them with nothing to report. Meanwhile, my boss brimmed with satisfaction as he assisted with the installation. Here is the most enjoyable part. We noticed that the neighboring family had begun parking their personal vehicles in our lot, likely out of spite in an effort to annoy us. One day, my coworker witnessed a family member rush out of their store, sprinting to their vehicle. We found it peculiar at the time but did not think much of it until the following week, when the landscaper's son entered our store appearing somewhat embarrassed. Apparently, he had unintentionally overstayed the 3-hour limit and had received a $150 fine. The son practically pleaded with us to waive the fee, claiming it was merely a mistake. My boss graciously replied, "Oh, I would truly love to assist, but this is no longer within our jurisdiction. The parking company manages all fines." The expression on his face was priceless. He left with his shoulders drooping, heading back to their store. Since that incident, our parking lot has been wonderfully clear, and our customers have not encountered any issues finding available spaces. Meanwhile, the landscapers have expressed their dissatisfaction as they struggle to maneuver their vans, still attempting to feign indifference. As for my boss, he has been smiling considerably more lately. Sometimes, the most satisfying retribution is simply allowing individuals to receive exactly what they requested. In summary, our neighboring landscaping store monopolized parking and refused to cooperate. We adhered to their wishes by blocking off our lot and implementing parking enforcement cameras. Within a week, they received a fine and came to us, pleading for leniency. My boss simply informed them it was out of our hands. Now, our lot remains clear, and we are happier than ever. Story 4. My 32M wife, 31F, lost a lot of weight and I am no longer physically attracted to her. Advice. Hello, everyone. As indicated in the title, my wonderful wife has shed approximately 70 pounds over the past year, and I am struggling significantly to adjust to her transformed appearance. We have been together for 10 years, and she remains the love of my life, with my feelings for her unchanged in the slightest. She is my favorite person in the entire world, and even after a decade, I still eagerly count the moments until I can be with her at the end of the day. She is intelligent, humorous, charming, stunning, and undoubtedly out of my league. However, since she has lost the weight, I have completely lost my desire to be intimate with her. Before anyone inquires, I do not have a fetish for overweight individuals. Throughout my life, I have dated approximately 6 women, including girlfriends and casual encounters, and they have all maintained a weight considered to be normal, except for my wife. When I first met her, she was slightly heavier. I would estimate around 30 pounds above her ideal weight. However, being tall, she carried it well, with most of the weight distributed to her hips, thighs, and breasts. We were each other's first sexual partners. Although I had some experience in previous relationships, I never felt comfortable enough to take that step until I met her. I can genuinely say that I adored her body at every opportunity. Over the next 10 years, we had sexual relations almost daily. During that time, she gained some additional weight, but I loved her figure all the same and would frequently compliment her, often unable to keep my hands to myself both in public and when we were alone. Last year, she decided to undergo weight loss surgery. This decision did not surprise me, as many members of her family have struggled with weight issues, and several have successfully undergone the procedure. I never considered her to be morbidly obese, so I was shocked to learn she met the minimal criteria for surgery. I suppose her height, we are the same, helped to distribute her weight more evenly, making her appear thinner than she was. Thankfully, our country promotes health and fitness, with universal health care, resulting in less stringent requirements for such procedures compared to other regions. I was exceptionally supportive throughout her journey. It was challenging, yet she succeeded, and I am immensely proud of her for persevering. After a few weeks in recovery, the rapid weight loss began. Within a few months, she had lost around 50 pounds. Being around her felt incredibly strange. It was as if my mind could not reconcile this new person before me. I experienced intense discomfort, feeling like I was in the presence of a complete stranger. I recognized her as my wife, but my brain urged me to maintain distance as if I did not know her. I attempted to conceal my feelings as best I could, and I believe I succeeded, as she never questioned me about it, and we maintain open communication. Thankfully, that discomfort gradually faded with time. She was unable to have sexual relations for 3 months after the surgery, and when the doctors finally cleared her, she had already lost a significant amount of weight. During this period, I noticed a decline in my desire to be intimate with her or even see her undressed. At the time, I attributed it to work-related stress. The past year has been incredibly difficult at my job, and did not think much of it. However, over the following year, she continued to lose weight until it stabilized at a weight considered normal for her height and age. During this time, our sexual frequency diminished dramatically, from daily before her surgery to bi-weekly, then monthly, and now about once every 2 months. People often say that attraction can fade due to lack of familiarity, but nearly a year has passed, and I still haven't adjusted, which worries me about our future. As I mentioned, I love this woman dearly, yet I find myself less attracted to her new physique. I could never share these feelings with her, as I do not want to discourage her progress. She seems much happier now than she did before, and is genuinely excited about the new clothing options available to her. I could never forgive myself if I said anything that might jeopardize her happiness. Regrettably, during our last sexual encounter, I found myself reminiscing about her previous appearance throughout the experience just to get and maintain an erection. This made me feel terrible afterward and raised serious concerns that I might not be able to keep this from her much longer. I suspect she has noticed something is off by now, but I do not know if she perceives it as stemming from stress or something else entirely. The idea of her feeling inadequate about something she cannot control fills me with dread. I am uncertain about how to proceed and am seeking advice. Has anyone experienced something similar? Were you able to adapt? If so, how did you do it? How long did it take? Edit. I have perused similar threads, and a frequent response suggests that a partner who has lost weight may become more extroverted and eager to explore the world without fear of societal judgment, whereas the other partner may not share that desire, creating a rift between them. That does not apply to our situation. We are both homebodies. In fact, she has not changed in that regard at all. Additionally, we still go out as frequently as we did before for date nights or gatherings. We are both physically active and have been diligently going to the gym together for the past 6 years, which remains unchanged except for the 3 months post-surgery, when she was unable to lift weights. Realistically, the only changes post-surgery regarding her have been her weight and wardrobe. Everything else remains unchanged. We are not suddenly two completely different, incompatible individuals. Another common inquiry is whether the partner experiencing issues is overweight and feels inadequate, or as though they have lost their partner in crime, which is also not applicable to us, as I am quite fit myself and somewhat of a gym enthusiast. TLDR. My wife lost a significant amount of weight within a year due to weight loss surgery, and I have lost all desire to engage in sexual relations with her because of it. I still love her just as much as before. I am simply not attracted to her new figure. I need assistance because I do not want to lose the love of my life.